to our formal speech portion of the evening and introduce our first speaker, Lloyd Smith. In today's internet age, urban legends and rumors can very quickly take on lives of their own and rapidly get out of the originator's control. Many people don't realize or remember that back in the pre-internet days, the same thing happened, though much more slowly. Tonight, in the first part of the evaluation and feedback project in level 1 of the Engaging Humor Path, Lloyd Smith will discuss one such event from the dim past, when he was in high school, and the unexpected consequences it had. This is a revised version of a speech Lloyd originally wrote for the Humor Speech Contest, but he set it aside when he got a better idea. Lloyd Smith and Maximum Louie Louie.
In 1963, when I was a sophomore in high school, a rumor began spreading around the teenagers of America. According to the rumor, the version of the song Louie Louie by the Kingsmen, which was getting huge airplay at the time, was actually all about sex. Now today, we're so used to vulgar and even obscene song lyrics, so we don't even notice them. But in 1963, in a song that was being played dozens of times every day on the radio, oh wow, it was the focus of our teenage lives for weeks. According to the rumor, you had to play the single at 33 1/3 RPM instead of the regular 45. And you had to play the volume at exactly the right level. If you did it correctly, you would be able to hear the smutty lyrics in Louie Louie. Now, did we actually believe that? Not really, but we wanted to. And whenever there were adults around, we pretended that we believed it. It was actually an urban legend. Somebody somewhere had figured out a way to play a practical joke on millions of kids all over the country. There was actually nothing at all suggestive in the lyrics to Louie Louie. The song was written in 1957 by a rhythm and blues artist named somebody I can't think of right now. Oh, Richard Berry. And it tells a really simple story of a sailor who's sitting in a bar telling the bartender named Louie that he needs to finish his drink and get on his boat and sail back to Jamaica where his girlfriend is. Now the composer, Mr. Berry, weirdly combined a sea chanty with elements of calypso and cha-cha beats. It has an extremely simple 3-chord structure, and it has a hypnotic 1-2-3, 1-2, 1-2-3, 1-2 rhythm that's made it kind of addictively popular to this very day. There have been more than 1,500 versions recorded. That's more than Paul McCartney's Yesterday. Now, the thing about it is that in 1963, the lead vocalist for the Kingsmen, Jack Ely, added another element to the song, and that was a slurred, completely inarticulate delivery. It's impossible to understand a single word that he's singing, and that allowed people to assume that since they couldn't understand it, it was probably dirty, and that's what caused the rumor to spring up. It also created panic in the adult world. After he received thousands and thousands of complaints from anxious parents and outraged religious leaders, the U.S. Attorney General, Robert Kennedy, ordered the FBI to investigate Louie Louie. After 33 months of work, the agents reported to J. Edgar Hoover that the recording was unintelligible at any speed, and they couldn't tell whether it was obscene. Their 170-page final report with numerous redactions was finally released to the public in 1984 after a Freedom of Information Act lawsuit. And you can find it today on the FBI's online reading room. Now, that was odd enough, but in 1985, things got really weird when Louie Louie came this close to being named the official state song of Washington. Some bored Western Washington University students, as a spring break prank, convinced the Whatcom County Commission to pass a resolution to the state legislature urging them to make Louie Louie the state song. A Seattle comedian named Ross Schaefer, who was the host of a King TV show called Almost Live, began making fake news reports from the steps of the state capitol about the progress of Louie Louie through the state legislature. His comic bit turned into a serious political movement almost overnight. 15,000 people around the state, including me, joined a political pressure group called Maximum Louie Louie to promote the idea. Thousands of us wrote letters to the legislature and made phone calls, and amazingly, a committee in the Washington State Senate actually passed a bill naming Louie Louie as the official state song. However, before a vote could be scheduled in the entire Senate, a powerful pressure group formed up. And that was in the form of a polite 79-year-old grandmother named Helen Davis, who was the composer of a song called Washington, My Home, which had been named the official state song in 1959. Schaefer invited Mrs. Davis to come to his show, where he had a hard-driving proto-punk band from Tacoma called the Sonics play their loud, aggressive, angry, actually, version of Louie Louie. Mrs. Davis stood there with this dumbstruck look on her face, and when Schaefer told her that that was going to replace her song, she started crying. The Maximum Louie Louie movement died on the spot, and we missed our opportunity. Now, all of this actually raises a more or less serious question. How many of you in here can sing or even hum Washington, My Home? Now, how many of you in here can sing or hum Louie Louie? I think the message is clear. It's time for us to have a state song that people can actually sing. In fact, a state song that hundreds of thousands of Washingtonians actually have sung, some of them dead drunk at parties. But most of all, we need a song that's got the musicological subtlety of Louie Louie. Louie Louie, oh no, me gotta go now. Louie Louie, oh baby, me gotta go. It's beautiful. Mr. Toastmaster, me all done now, and me gotta go.
Mr. Timer, please put 1 minute on the clock. Yes, you are welcome to take this form in front of you and just jot down a few notes of feedback for Lloyd, any things you'd like to know.